King, Taylor King, Taylor King, Taylor King.
Hey, how's it going, guys? This is CJ here. I'm here with Leigh Whannell. Did I say that right?
Leigh Whannell.
Leigh Whannell.
Like Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee, Leigh Whannell. And he's the director of the new movie that's coming out, Upgrade. How's it going?
Very well. It's good to be here.
Cool. I know you probably get this a lot. So you're coming from doing acting, and then you're writing, and now you're directing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you did, what was it?
Saw and Insidious.
Yes, Insidious 3.
Mm-hmm.
You directed that. So how has that been kind of transitioning from acting to writing and then you're directing? Has that been an easy transition, or is it just...
It's interesting. Acting is really a hard thing to do because so much of your success in acting is based on the opinions of others. You have to go into an audition room and you have to win somebody over. And I don't love that part of it. I think my love for acting has faded a little bit in that regard. What I love about writing is that no one can stop you from doing it.
Yeah.
You know, you can just pick up a notepad and pen or a laptop and just start writing. You have a lot more control of your own destiny. And so I think I've sort of moved away from acting into filmmaking, you know, and now I've got the directing bug, so I want to see how many films I can make, you know.
So, you know, with Upgrade and stuff, when you were, you know, going through the process of, you know, writing up this movie and such, what prevented you from kind of running into tropes? Because, I mean, for the movie, the way it's set up and stuff, what made you kind of not run into those tropes that you see in these kind of, like, movies where, you know, the person gets upgrades and, like...
Right.
Like, how did you avoid those kind of, like, pitfalls and such?
I guess you just try your best. You as you're writing the film, you have to think like an audience member. You have to think, okay, what has the audience already seen? What would make them groan or think that the movie was predictable?
Yeah.
But you're always taking your best guess, and movies are subjective. Like, I've seen some great reactions to this film. I've seen some great reviews.
Yeah.
And then I've also seen a couple of reviews saying, oh, this movie's predictable. So it's like it's impossible to predict how the world is going to react to your film. You take your best guess, you give it your best effort, and then you just let go of it.
Yeah.
The film, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the audience, and they'll make of it what they will.
Yeah. Was it always the goal to kind of make this world very, like, realistic and stuff instead of trying to do it, like, far into the future, flying cars?
Yeah, flying... No, I never wanted to do the flying cars.
Yeah.
I always wanted it to be very tangible, very close to our own time. Like, it felt like it was just around the corner. That was the
definitely.
feeling I was going for. And that was my goal even before we started pre-production and figured out that we didn't have a lot of money to make the film. I always wanted to make something that just felt 10 years in the future, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, given, especially with what's his face is your main actor and stuff, how did you manage to, like, get him to kind of, like, get those emotions out there and stuff? Because, like I said, for a character in his position of what he's experienced and stuff, you always get the people to go, oh my god, woe is me. And,
right.
But you don't get that with him in this movie, and I actually do enjoy that.
Oh, great. That's good. I mean, well, the first thing you have to do is cast a great actor. I mean, it's one of the most important parts of making a film. You know, once you've got a great script, which is really the hardest part of making a film, then you need to cast it correctly. And a great script cast well is 80% of the movie. You know, the rest of it is kind of like directing traffic. You just have to get all those technical pieces right. So Logan was someone that I knew was a really good actor. I'd seen him in a film called The Invitation. Yeah. And he was great in that, and he was carrying a lot of weight on his shoulders in that movie, you know. And he was going through all this grief, but he was doing it in a really great way. Like you said, he wasn't doing it in a way that was sort of sickly or overacty. It was just really well calibrated. So I knew he'd be good in that regard. Yeah. And then he was extra great throwing himself into the physical aspects of the role, like the training and the way he was moving his body. He really attacked that head on. And so I was glad to have him.
Yeah, because what I like about it is also the AI that's in his chip and stuff. Like, how did you manage to develop that aspect to him?
Well, the movement he was doing was something that we just talked about from day one. We were like, we need to get you moving like a computer would move.
Yeah.
And so he would practice it. He would send me videos. He would email me these short videos of him in his backyard, kind of moving like this, eating an apple. And then I would send him comments, and I'd say, less robot dancing. You know, don't move like the Tin Man. Move like fluidly, like almost like a dancer, like with that kind of ballet grace. We've got to kill that little bug, don't we? We'll get him. And so I actually, when he came to Australia, I actually had him training with a dance instructor and a movement coordinator who were helping to teach him use his core and move his body in a different way. So it was just a step-by-step process of getting him to the point where he's in the movie, you know?
Yeah, so did you ever take any of your stuff that I mean, I'm pretty sure you did, but like a lot of stuff that you've done previously, like with Insidious and Saw, did that kind of like directly play into how this all played out in this film? In terms of just writing and directing? And
a lot of it did. I mean, I one thing horror teaches you is how to be creative on a low budget. You know, horror films are usually lower budget than other movies, and you're always up against the clock, and you're always having to, kind of pull something out of your ass, for lack of a better term. You're like, oh man, what am I going to do? I got 20 minutes to get this shot, and so you're like, okay. And so that was definitely something I took to this movie, because we were in a similar situation. We didn't have a huge schedule. We didn't have a lot of time, so I kind of brought that horror filmmaking know-how to it. I was like, all right, we can do this. Let's just throw the camera on the floor. There was a lot of kind of rough and tumble stuff to it, you know? Yeah,
what was it like? Because I know his character, he starts off paraplegic and stuff. So, like, how was it, like, was it really hard to kind of film those kind of scenes where it's like, okay, it's not action, but we have to kind of, he's immobile and we have to do this?
Yeah.
Like, was that a little hard to actually do?
No, it was, I mean, the most important thing is to have a plan. Like, I knew I had a visual plan for the film. Like, for instance, when he's paralyzed, when he's a quadriplegic, the camera was always static. Yeah. It never moved. I didn't want it to move at all, because I wanted the camera to represent that feeling of being completely static.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that people don't notice. Maybe they notice it unconsciously, but it was definitely there. So I had that plan, so I knew that each shot during that sequence would just be locked off.
Yeah.
And then I knew that once Stem took over, all of a sudden the camera would be locked to him.
Yeah.
And it puts you off kilter, you know? So at each stage of the movie, I knew how the visual language would play out. In the beginning, when he's fine, the camera was very floaty, a little bit of handheld, It was felt more organic, like a human being,
Yeah, because I remember seeing the trailer for this. I was like, what is this? And then, like, you see everything that happens, like, okay, I'm in. Like, because it looks, a lot of these low budget movies and such, they look like they have like a hefty budget behind them and stuff.
Right.
So, what has been the trick behind actually getting that kind of like feel to it?
It's tough. It's tough to make a low budget film look like it has more money. You've really got to decide what are the scenes where I'm really going to go all out, because some movies. They go all out in every scene.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch a Michael Bay movie and it's just like explosions.
Just it's exhausting over time.
Exactly. After 2.5 hours, you feel like someone's beating you up, and so we didn't have that at our disposal. So we had to pick like 3 Michael Bay moments and say, okay, these are going to be the baskets where we put all our eggs, and then the rest of the film will feel ostensibly like a drama. People talking, people relating. The sleight of hand that you're trying to pull off is that the audience doesn't notice that most of the film is just people talking to each other.
Yeah, just because it goes by so much.
Yeah, it goes by, and the rhythm of the movie, and then when the action scenes do hit, they have a big impact, so they linger. So it's a little bit of a Jedi mind trick that you're trying to pull off,
Yeah. What was the because I like the Saw movies like all the way to the end. Right. So how did that idea of that first movie like come up?
Well, it started out with James Wan and I were in Australia. We had been to film school together, and we quickly figured out after film school that nobody was going to give us any money to make a movie.
Yeah.
And so we figured out that we should pay for a movie ourselves. We should try and do a Blair Witch Project, you know. And so we decided that a low-budget movie was going to have to be set in one room with 2 actors. And then we spent a long time trying to come up with a concept that you could set in one room. And eventually we came up with the story for Saw. Basically 2 guys chained up in a toilet.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know, we never thought of that movie being successful, let alone spawning 7 sequels.
Yeah.
I was involved with 2 of the sequels. I wrote 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And then that was it. And I was like, okay, I've kind of finished this story. To me, it was like a trilogy.
Yeah, it did feel like kind of a trilogy of like callback stuff, because that's what I like about it is like it's one of those movie series that has that continuity where it's like, oh, that happened in the second movie.
Right.
Oh, that happened in the first movie. So
back,
it's a lot, because even after you had left, I still watched it and stuff. Anyway,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Because it was like, okay, I'm still kind of
invested
in it now. This is actually really good.
Great. I mean, yeah, you know, the producers, they kept going with it. They definitely tried to link each story to the last one. And I started moving on and doing the Insidious movies with James Wan, and then so I sort of went on my own path. But it's funny when after you've made a film, it's not really yours anymore. It belongs to not only the audience but the studio.
Yeah.
Studio owns the copyright. So oftentimes people will say to me like, "So why did you let them make so many sequels with Saw?" And I'll say, I can't let them do anything.
It's not mine.
Yeah, it's not mine. I don't own the copyright to that property anymore.
Yeah.
Even though I created Saw and wrote that script, you know,
once it's sold
in my bedroom. Yeah, once somebody else pays for it, it becomes their property. So it's definitely a strange feeling to be driving down the street and see a billboard for a movie that you helped create.
Yeah.
But now it's grown up and it's moved on without you.
Yeah.
That is a strange feeling, my friend.
Very much.
Yeah, you're like, wow, that took off. But you know, it's a blessing in the end. I mean, there's nothing that makes me bitter about it, because I just feel lucky that I get to make films for a living. So I don't mind that somebody is out there sequelizing a film that I wrote, because the fact that they're doing that means somebody's interested.
I mean, because that's rare for anybody to get that, have their property actually like, oh yeah, we're going to make multiple sequels.
Yeah, I mean, who does that?
Okay.
It just doesn't happen as much anymore. Like, look at the Bond franchise. They keep making James Bond movies and they just keep churning them out. It's been going for decades and decades. Somebody wants to go and see those movies. So, you know, I love all movies, you know, and I love that they exist. I love that this medium exists. So I'm kind of happy for people to take it on board. If I really, you know, I always think of that famous story about Steven Spielberg. He never wanted to make a sequel to E.T.
Yeah.
You know, he did E.T. and then
that's it.
Yeah, the studio said part 2, and he was like, no. And so I feel like if I was ever lucky enough, or talented enough, or smart enough to make an E.T., like a real classic, I might be protective of it just like that. I might put my foot down and say, no sequels. Yeah, we're good here.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
When you're making films.
I saw, you know, on your profile, like acting-wise and stuff, you did start off on the Matrix series and such.
Oh, yeah. I had like 2 lines in the Matrix. Matrix Reloaded.
But just being a part of that property as a whole, what was that experience like, even for that short time that you were on?
Amazing. It was like, at the time, it was the greatest thing that had ever happened to me, and still might be. Because I was such a huge fan of the first Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I watched that movie again and again, and I loved it. I still love it. And I remember they were holding auditions for the sequel, and they shot the sequel in Australia, so they pretty much did auditions with every Australian actor that was out there. So I had my turn. I remember, believe it or not, I wrote a couple of lines from the movie on my shirt. I kind of dressed. I wrote it. I was like, yeah, they'll see this and they'll be like, oh, this guy's a super fan. He's gonna. And I got the part. And like, you know what the trippiest thing was? Walking onto the stage and seeing the ship, and then all the green code was right there running down the computer screens, the Matrix code. it was like, I can imagine it's the same feeling that an actor gets when they walk onto the Millennium Falcon or something.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you know,
it's just like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm part of this.
It's like
crazy.
Wait, I'm standing inside my favorite movie right now. How is this even possible? And it really does bring out the inner child in you, because you want to play. I mean, a movie like that, what is it but adults playing dress-ups and acting?
It really is.
Yeah, it's like throw on an army uniform when you're a kid and you're running around playing war or whatever. Well, adults do that for a living, and it's called acting. And I loved it. It was so cool. What's funny is, even because it was such a big movie, 2 lines takes like a month to shoot. Yeah. So I was up in Sydney for a month. I was loving it. I was like, you're telling me this minibar is free. I can have what I want.
Yeah, so, being, your movie is part of Blumhouse now, like, how's that experience been like working with that studio?
They're great. I mean, they definitely have a certain model that's maybe not for everyone. Yeah. Which is that they are no frills. They want to make low-budget movies. But their model actually allows them to do 2 things. Mm-hmm. One is it allows them to give the filmmakers total creative freedom. Oh, yeah. They don't have to micromanage the filmmakers, because that is what they're offering in lieu of a big budget. Yeah. The other thing it lets them do is take risks on the stuff they make. Like, look at Get Out. Oh. I mean, Get Out was nominated for Best Picture. Yeah. When have you heard of a $5 million independent horror movie being nominated for Best Picture?
That's rarity.
There's no precedent for that, right?
Yeah.
But and secondly, who the hell would let a comedian walk into their office and say, I've got an idea for a horror film, and the response is, great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Here's a budget.
Here's a budget. Go. Like, I don't think anyone else would have let Jordan Peele make that film except Blumhouse. And so...
Or if they did let them make it, it'd probably be like, okay, you have to kind of change this up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's make it more commercial. Let's put in more jump scares, or let's do this, that, and the other. Let's cast someone different. Yeah. We need bigger actors. Yeah.
I can't imagine if your movie was in an actual major studio, because I can see, because like, just because me and my friends, we watch movies all the time and stuff. You can imagine, like, okay, if this was actually big budget, I could see them changing this, that.
Oh yeah,
it's just because and it's like, even when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, yeah, this is bigger budget. I can see them doing this. The whole process of him being. It's like you could just visually see it, because, like I said, it's just when you watch so many movies, you just. Boom.
You think Paramount's going to let him use like Daniel Kaluuya for the lead role? They're going to be like, Kevin Hart's available. He's going to be great in the lead. Like, but he was able to cast the actors he wanted to cast, and that is what Blumhouse offers you, and they're great. I love that. I mean, I doubt I could have made this film with anyone else. They probably, what they would have tried to do is make the $30 million version, and in doing that, it probably wouldn't have been made, because
probably hope that it breaks even.
Yeah, exactly. Is it? And even if you did get it made, is it going to break even or make any money? So, I like working with them. I like making films at that level. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, you just said you had the directing bug now. So, I mean, is there any sort of like properties that you want to tackle? I mean, because like you said, you got science fiction, you've done horror. So, I mean, is there any other stuff, any sort of genres you want to tackle?
Oh man, I mean, I do have a kids' film that I wrote years ago. It's like kind of a fantasy film along the lines of something like Labyrinth, and I really love that. And one day I'd love to make that. Yeah, that's probably be that's my Moby Dick. That's out there. I've got to somehow hunt it down.
Yeah, you were talking about like reactions to, I guess this is the last question, like you were talking about reactions to this film and stuff, like even for you, like when you see criticism, I mean, even when you were doing the Saw movies and Insidious movies and stuff, what was kind of like, 'cause I never really asked this out of people that direct, like what is your reaction when you see like the negative comments? Is it just kind of like they didn't get it, or it's like, well, maybe they got a point, maybe? Or...
It's tough. It definitely stings. I try not to read much of a bad review. I might read like the first few sentences, but if it starts to feel like a car crash, I'm like, I'm out of here. Pull the ripcord. Yeah. But it definitely stings. Filmmaking is so personal. So when you put a film out into the world that you've directed or written, you can't help but take the feedback personally. Of course, you get over it. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing you have to keep in mind is no matter how bad the reviews are, eventually you'll get over it, you'll get back on the horse, and you'll make something else. But initially it stings. Like when this movie finally is released and suddenly every critic around has a review and the Rotten Tomatoes rating, which has become the new metric for the quality of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
When that happens, I'll be, watching it through my fingers. Like, there's a lot of nerves involved in that. But I'd rather suffer the nerves and do this for a living than not do this for a living just to avoid that situation. I think you have to just put yourself out there and go for it.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I'm at that, actually. Social media, because social media I've seen has like influenced a lot of movies and such in terms of like how it's get directed. Because I mean, when Get Out came out, I remember when it was like had a short release before it got the long release. A lot of us were like talking about like, oh my god, you guys got to see this.
Yeah.
Like, have you played up social media in terms of this movie or any other movies?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on Twitter. I'm trying to get the word out about the film. I think you feel an extra responsibility when the film doesn't have a huge marketing budget. You feel that responsibility to put the word out yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's on your shoulders. And it's not like we have this cast of thousands that I'm on the road with. It's just me out there. So chatting to people like yourself, that's the way to get the word out. I'm happy to do it because we have to do something that's more grassroots than, say, the latest Star Wars film.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to a Star Wars movie, the media will come to you.
Yeah.
The media comes to Star Wars. They're picking and choosing who they want to talk to.
Yeah, because I've always seen these kind of movies as being kind of like, okay, well, I don't feel like watching... Because, I mean, your movie comes out same week.
It's like
June.
It's the week after.
Yeah, so it's the week after. So it's like, I always felt that these kind of movies are perfect for, like, alternative viewings. It's like, I don't feel like Star Wars. Hey, let me check out Upgrade.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, yeah, exactly. I hope that people... I read a statistic once that most people make the decision of what movie they're going to see while they're in line. Like, they kind of go to the movie theatre and then decide. And so I'm hoping that people are there and they look up and they're like, all right, let's go with this Upgrade movie. Because as you say, that not everybody wants to go and see the giant tentpole movies. Maybe they've already seen it,
Yeah, because I mean, that was the same with Get Out from what I had noticed that a lot of people were like, because I forgot what movie it came out around the time. It had to have been a Marvel or DC movie that probably came out around the time of Get Out, but like I remember a lot of people were like, I'm going to go see Get Out because, and
well,
I just noticed
like
that
too. Theory of like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
Like even the smaller boats, in summer people are going to the movies, so maybe the sheer numbers of people in the movies lifts up the attendance, Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah, but nice been talking to you.
Man, really
Appreciate
nice to
it.
talk to you. I super appreciate it. Thanks, man.
No problem.
Chin, 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 narrow.